welcome back to Blacklit Memory. In tonight's episode, I'm sharing 9 more true accounts from the Appalachian backroad stories of things seen between the trees, voices that don't belong, and places that wait for you to return. If you've ever walked a trail and felt it stretch too long, or found yourself staring into glass that didn't stare back, these are for you. Hit like, subscribe, and tell me what's the last thing that made your skin crawl. Let's begin. It was early November, bitter cold. When I saw it, I was driving through Pine Gap Stretch, a winding patch of asphalt tucked deep into the Virginia mountains, the kind of road where the trees crowd the edge like they're listening. I just finished a week-long job repairing radio lines near Cumberland, and was headed home to Roanoke, 5 hours of loneliness, pine and static. My name's Eli Garner. I'm 33, an electrician by trade, and I've done this drive more times than I can count. But that night, something about the road felt too quiet, like the mountain had swallowed the rest of the world. About 30 minutes in, I noticed the headlights. Not mine, the ones in the rear view. 2 bright circles, evenly spaced, glowing too white for halogen, and riding at a perfect distance behind me. I didn't think much of it at first. Figured it was someone else heading through the mountain stretch, maybe a trucker keeping pace. But after a few miles, I noticed they weren't changing. No dip over hills, no flare around curves. Just floating, steady. It was as if the vehicle, if it was one, was tethered to me by an invisible string. I slowed a little, curious. The lights stayed the same distance behind me, 20, maybe 30 meters. I sped up. They kept pace. My radio had gone fuzzy a few minutes earlier, which didn't help the unease starting to creep up my spine. I turned it off, cracked the window. Cold air poured in, sharp with the smell of wet leaves and wood smoke. Still, the lights remained, unwavering, like eyes watching me drive deeper into nowhere. When I finally pulled over at a gravel shoulder near an old overlook, I expected the car to pass, but the lights didn't move. They stopped to same distance, same angle. No engine hum, no tire crunch, just stillness. I leaned out and squinted into the dark, flashlight in hand. That's when I saw it. Not a car, no vehicle at all. Just the 2 lights, hovering low to the ground, and in between them, a pale face, hovering. The features were sharp but unnatural, as if carved from wax. No eyes, just smooth, stretched skin, pulled tight into a grin that didn't move. No breathing, no blinking. I stumbled back into my car, heart slamming. I locked the doors, like that would help. My hands were shaking too hard to hold the flashlight steady, so I turned on the high beams. Nothing. No lights. No face, just trees and fog curling across the asphalt. But in the mirror, the 2 lights were still there. I reached for my phone. No signal. I checked my watch, 2:13 a.m. Hadn't it just been 1:40, I couldn't be sure. My thoughts felt jumbled, like a dream you can't quite wake from. I turned the key and peeled out. Tires spitting gravel. The lights followed. Every turn, every bend they moved with me. Too perfectly. I started whispering to myself. Some kind of prayer I half remembered from childhood. If it's real, let it pass, let it pass. But it never did. I drove for 30 more miles, white-knuckled and sweating, and the lights never closed in, never fell back. Only at the edge of the national forest did they blink out. One moment they were there, The next, gone, as if swallowed whole by the trees. I told myself I'd imagined it. Long day, bad lighting, tricks of the fog. But a week later, I took my car in for a tire rotation, and the mechanic called me out to the lot. He pointed to the back bumper. "What kind of tape did you use for these?" he asked. I had no idea what he meant. Lined up perfectly on either side of my rear bumper were two circular scorch marks about the size of headlights, as if something had hovered there. Too long and too close. I don't take Pine Gap stretch anymore, even when the GPS insists it's the fastest route. I tried to forget it. For weeks I told myself it was stress, or sleep deprivation, or some odd chemical reflection hell. Maybe kids with drones. But every time I sat alone in the cab, the silence pressed harder than it used to. I found myself checking the rear view more than the road. I even stopped listening to the radio. Silence became safer than static, because when the static came back, I knew what it meant. It was a Thursday when it returned. Clear skies, full moon. Just a grocery run into the next town over. I wasn't even near Pine Gap. This was Route 58, open farmland, and straight stretches. But as I passed a broken fence line near an abandoned silo, the lights came back. Not behind me this time. Reflected. In the side mirror. Floating. Perfect. Two bright eyes in a place they couldn't be. I slammed the brakes and pulled over fast enough to send apples spilling across the floorboard. But when I stepped out, heart racing, there was nothing there. No lights, no sound. Just tall grass shifting under a wind I couldn't feel. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at the edge of my bed with the hallway light on, door half open like I used to when I was a kid, afraid of monsters. Only now, the monster didn't hide in closets. It followed roads. I kept thinking about that face. No eyes, just that waxy, grinning skin. I started to wonder if maybe it wasn't a face at all. Maybe it was a mask, or worse, maybe it was never meant to be seen. Something pretending to be seen. The real break came 3 weeks later, when I finally talked to a local ham radio guy. Retired firefighter. Name was Milt. Lived out near the edge of town. I figured if anyone knew about strange signals, he would. I asked him if he ever picked up odd interference near Pine Gap. His expression went flat, like he'd heard the question before. "Only once," he said. "Back in '97. Lost a buddy up that way." He said the lights were wrong, when I asked what he meant. Milt told me he'd seen them too, floating, even spaced. But no beams, just orbs. Like something was mimicking headlights, but didn't know how they worked. I left his place feeling worse, not better. Because if someone else saw it, then it wasn't just mine to carry. The next morning, there was something tucked under my windshield wiper. A folded paper, yellowed at the edges. No handwriting. Just a crude drawing in pencil, 2 lights. A face between them. And something else beneath the chin. Like tendrils. Curling down like roots or wires. I burned it in the fire pit that night. But the image stayed lodged in my brain like a splinter. That grin, still stretching. Now, months later, I don't drive after dark. I can't. I've started biking to work when I can. I avoid mirrors, especially the rear view. I sold the car, 2, when I handed the keys to the buyer. I didn't say anything about the marks on the bumper. He didn't ask. But as he pulled away, I noticed something that still turns my blood cold. His brake lights flickered just once. Then behind them, Two smaller lights blinked on, perfectly spaced, perfectly still. It was mid-October when we took the drive. Leaves burning red and gold across the Blue Ridge. The kind of fall that makes you forget how quiet death can be. My name's Jamie Rollins. I'm 29, freelance photographer, mostly nature spreads and roadside Americana for travel magazines. My partner, Alex, teaches art at a high school in Raleigh. We'd both needed the break, so we packed the Subaru, loaded up on coffee and gas station sandwiches, and set out along the Blue Ridge Parkway. Neither of us knew that around mile marker 43, something would notice us back. It started subtle. A torn billboard for a diner we never found. A bent road sign half swallowed by kudzu. A dead raccoon by the shoulder, twisted like it had fallen wrong. Normal things, if taken alone. But then the raccoon showed up again. Same angle, same blood pattern, same slack jaw. At first, I thought I'd imagined it roadkill's common out there. But then the bent sign passed us again, identical down to the rust bloom. We laughed it off at first. Deja vu, Alex said, tapping the GPS. But the screen hadn't changed. We were still just approaching mile 43. 2 hours in. I checked the dashboard clock. It still read 2:17 p.m., even though the sun had shifted. We tried calling out to Siri. To Google, nothing responded. No signal, no ping. The GPS bar stayed frozen, no matter how far we drove. That's when we noticed the trees. They weren't changing like before, no matter how far we went. The same broken birch leaned near the guardrail. Same black knot in the same white bark, like a bruise. I stopped the car, put it in park, and turned to Alex. You seeing this too? She nodded, too quiet. I got out to stretch. The air smelled off, like copper and wet stone. Alex stayed inside, watching me through the windshield. I walked a few steps up the road, boots crunching over gravel. When I turned back, the car was still there, but something felt wrong. Smaller, dimmer, like I was looking at a memory of it, not the real thing. I jogged back fast, heart pounding. Alex opened the door and said, "Don't do that again. Please." She hadn't seen the difference, but I swear the Subaru felt colder inside. We decided to turn around, but when we did, the next sign said mile 44, except everything looked the same. Same roadkill, same torn billboard, even the clouds seemed copied and pasted. It was like the road itself was just replaying one perfect second, looping it, while something waited for us to realize. I gripped the wheel so tight my fingers ached. Alex touched my shoulder. "What if we don't turn at all?" she asked. "What if we just stop?" But I couldn't stop. Something in me said we had to keep moving, that if we stayed still too long, something would catch up, or worse, remember we were there. I turned the car around again, drove back the other way, watched the odometer tick without meaning. Mile 43, again, always 43. The fourth time we passed the raccoon, I pulled over and walked to it. I had to see if it was real, if it was the same. It was same belly wound, same mat of fur, same ants crawling along the snout in the same slow spiral. I reached down and nudged it with a stick. It didn't budge. That's when I noticed something worse beneath it. In the dirt were tire tracks, ours, layered over themselves again and again until the gravel looked ground down to dust. That raccoon wasn't just a marker. It was a waypoint, a breadcrumb the loop didn't bother hiding anymore. Back in the car, Alex was crying quietly. She didn't want to talk about it, just kept saying, "This isn't how roads work." Her voice had changed. Small, flat, like a child repeating a rule to keep the world in place. I squeezed her hand and tried to stay calm, but my chest felt tight, like the air had thinned. That's when the radio clicked on by itself. No station, just a low hum, like breathing through fabric. Then, a voice. Ours. A clip of our own conversation from earlier, playing back on repeat. "Déjà vu," Alex said. "Déjà vu," Alex said. I killed the ignition and sat in silence. But the sound kept playing. The dashboard lights flickered once, then went dead. I turned the key. Nothing. The car didn't even try to start. We stepped out, planning to walk. But the second our feet hit the ground, the road felt different. Softer, almost spongy beneath the gravel. Trees leaned inward, crowding closer than before, like they'd grown while we weren't looking. And then we saw at the marker. Mile 43. Standing on the side of the road where it hadn't been seconds ago. Except this time, the numbers looked melted, like wax left too long in the sun. One of the digits was smeared, almost forming a 6. Alex whispered something I still don't understand. We're already part of it. I wanted to argue, but the moment she said it, I believed her. Because I turned around and saw a second car, parked just ahead of ours. Same model, same color, doors still shut, no one inside. But the strangest part, it was covered in dust, like it had been there for weeks. I checked the plates. Ours. Down to the sticker peeling in the corner. We didn't speak. We just backed away slowly, heartbeats pounding loud enough to hear. We walked until dark. No signal, no stars. Even the air felt artificial too still, like the world had been paused. Eventually, headlights crept over the rise behind us, not ours. A ranger vehicle, real and warm and moving forward. We waved him down, half hysterical. He looked confused, said he'd just started patrol and hadn't seen any other cars for miles, when we told him where we'd been. He frowned. "There's no mile marker 43, he said. That stretch skips straight from 42 to 44. Always has." It was late September when we ran low on gas moon high. Road empty, and not a single bar of signal between us and anywhere else. My name's Nicole Fenner. I was 31 working as a veterinary nurse out of Charleston, and my girlfriend Danny had just wrapped a gallery show in Morgantown. We took Route 33 home because we wanted the scenic way. The quiet kind of drive where fog drifts over the hills and a deer linger by the shoulder. We weren't prepared for how empty it got near Snowshoe. The tank had dipped below a quarter, and the GPS froze somewhere near Seneca Rocks. No lights, no signs. Just two people in a rented Corolla trying not to say out loud what we were both thinking we might have made a mistake. Then we saw it. A glow at the base of a hill, soft and golden, like something from a postcard. An old gas station, perfectly preserved like it had stepped out of 1955. Red pumps, chrome trim, a little white building with teal trim and a diner-style overhang. Baker's Gas. The sign read in thick block letters, and beneath it, smaller full service, open always. There was no one else around. No cars, no road noise, just the hiss of a single fluorescent bulb and the soft creak of a wind that didn't touch our skin. I remember Danny saying, "This looks too new." but we were desperate. So we pulled in. The pump worked. Clicked smoothly. No credit card slot. Just a lever and a price dial that spun up to $3.03 a gallon. As I filled the tank, Danny wandered around, peering in the dusty windows of the station shop. That's when he stepped out. The attendant, thin, tall, dressed in an old uniform that was crisp and clean like it had never seen grease. No name tag. His face looked wrong, in a way I still can't describe, too symmetrical. Like a wax statue that had learned how to blink. "Fill up fast," he said, not looking at me. He doesn't like strangers on this road. I asked who he was, but the man didn't answer. Just turned and walked around the side of the building, vanishing behind it like a shadow slipping under a door. We waited a few minutes, expecting him to come back, but he never did. The lights inside the building flickered once, then steadied. Danny tugged my sleeve and said, "Let's go." Her voice was shaking. I finished pumping, screwed the cap on, and we drove off without ever hearing another sound. No crickets, no wind, no engine hum until we hit the first turn, and the station slipped out of sight like it had never been there. We didn't talk much that night. Something about it felt fragile, like if we said too much, we'd bring it back. But the next day, we were both thinking the same thing. We had to see it again. Had to know it was real. So we drove the same stretch in daylight, took the same turns, followed every sign. But there was nothing there. Just a patch of overgrown weeds and a concrete slab cracked through the middle. The only thing left was a rusted sign, half hidden behind brush. Baker's Gas, the letters barely legible, the rest ashes, scattered glass, and a scorched ring of black earth where the building had stood. I crouched beside what was left of the slab and touched the concrete. It was warm. Not sun-warmed warm, like something had burned there recently, though the grass around it was dry and cool. Danny found a piece of the sign face down in the brush. When she flipped it over, there was a handprint scorched into the metal. Small, sharp-fingered, with too many knuckles. We stared at it for a long time. Neither of us said what we were thinking, that someone or something had left it there for us to find. We started asking around. Locals in Marlinton, shopkeepers in Snowshoe. Most folks shrugged it off, said there hadn't been a gas station out there in years. But one older man at a bait shop leaned in when we mentioned Baker's. "That place burned down in '82, he said. "Whole family gone with it. They say the fire never took the pumps, though, just the people." He wouldn't tell us more, just muttered a prayer and wouldn't meet our eyes again. Danny and I sat in the car afterwards, both silent. It didn't feel like a coincidence that the only part we'd seen untouched was the pumps. Later that week, I developed the photos I'd taken of the drive. I'd snapped a couple out the window, just to catch the fall colors, and one as we pulled into the station. Only it wasn't there. In the photo, the station's gone. No building, no pumps, no light. Just the curve of road, the empty shoulder, and a strange distortion in the center like heat shimmer, but wrong. Danny took out her phone and opened the GPS history. That whole stretch unrecorded. It jumped from Route 33 straight past the area, like we'd skipped it entirely. I couldn't stop thinking about the attendant, the way he said, "He doesn't like strangers." Who was he? What road was it we'd really pulled into, and what would have happened if we hadn't left when we did? I started dreaming of it, Baker's. But in the dreams, it's always night, always glowing, and someone's always standing inside, behind the glass, watching the road. I can't see his face, but I know it's not the man who spoke to us. It's something older, something waiting. 3 weeks after we got back, Danny started sleepwalking. Just once. I found her at the door, hand on the knob, whispering, "It's open now." She didn't remember it the next morning. But the smell in the hallway stayed with me. Old gas, charcoal, and something sweet beneath it, like burning sugar. We haven't taken the back roads since. We keep to the interstates now, where the light feels real and the signs don't vanish when you turn your head. But sometimes, on cold nights, I check the rearview mirror, just in case something followed us out. We weren't even supposed to be on that road. The GPS had frozen after a detour sign near Highway 19 in Tennessee. And the group 5 of us in a borrowed SUV decided to take the back way. It was early evening, that strange blue hour where everything looks washed out and half-dreamed. I was in the back seat, window cracked, letting the autumn air creep in. My name's Nate, 26, senior at UT Knoxville, studying folklore and local history. This wasn't my first trip into the hills, but it was the first time I felt like the hills were watching us back. The first sign looked old. Wooden slats nailed to 2 posts. Weathered white paint curling like dead skin. "Welcome back to Hollow Ridge," it read. We laughed at it. None of us had ever been to a place called that, let alone back to it. But the road pressed on, winding tight through pine and sycamore, and we kept driving. A minute later, another sign. This one nailed to a tree. "We remember you, Nate." Everyone went quiet. At first, I thought it was a prank. But no one in the car was the type, and they looked just as confused as I felt. 10 minutes later, we passed one that said, "Stop running, Kayla." Kayla was in the passenger seat. She turned around and stared at me, face pale. "That's not funny," she said. But no one had laughed. The signs kept coming. Always ahead of us, never behind. We tried to turn around, but the shoulder was too narrow, the trees too tight. The road behind us had vanished from the map entirely. Just a gray bar with no name. Kayla's phone died without warning. Battery at 47%. Mine followed a minute later. We were deep in something we didn't understand. Eventually, we stopped at a fork where the trees opened slightly. No birds, no wind. Just the creak of wood from somewhere nearby, like something rocking back and forth, just out of sight. The last sign we passed stood crooked in the dirt. Nailed to a warped post, it said, "This is the last time." No names, no warning, just finality. I stepped out, heart pounding, and noticed the road behind us no longer looked paved. The lines were gone. The gravel looked wrong, too uniform, like someone had placed every stone by hand. We tried to backtrack, turned around, drove slow. The signs were gone. The road felt longer now. No forks, no markings, just curve after curve that started to look identical. At some point, we realized we hadn't spoken in 10 minutes. No one wanted to break the silence, like something was waiting for us to. When we finally found a clearing, we stopped and piled out. Everyone was shaking. I checked my notebook, the one I always keep in my backpack. It was open to a page I don't remember writing. A sketch of a tree. And beneath it, the words, "You've already been here." We camped in the car that night. No one wanted to say it. But none of us felt safe enough to keep driving. The clearing was too quiet, too perfect. like something had carved it out for us to stop. Kayla didn't sleep. She sat in the front seat with her hoodie pulled over her head, humming under her breath like a lullaby. I dozed off for a bit, but kept waking up with the same image in my head, a row of signs, freshly painted, each one with our names, counting down. I kept checking the mirror, half expecting one to appear behind us. In the morning, we found a road again, not the one we came in on. This one was cracked and mossy, with guardrails that ended in rusted curls. But it was on the map. A state route, barely used, but real. We followed it until we hit a gas station near Newport. Everyone inside acted normal. No mention of Hollow Ridge, no recognition when I asked. I even showed the cashier my sketch. She looked at it for a long time and then said, "That's just a tree." But she said it too fast, like she was trying to make it sound smaller than it was. We made it back to Knoxville by late afternoon. I tried to retrace our route that night. Went over maps, checked satellite views, even posted on some forums. Nothing. No road by that name. No signs like the ones we saw. But I know what I saw. I know what we heard. I started dreaming again, like I did as a kid, dreams of roads that turn in on themselves, of forests that whisper your name. Sometimes I wake up with the taste of pine needles in my mouth. Kayla won't talk about it at all anymore. She transferred out of UT a month later. The worst part is, I think we left someone behind. There were 5 of us when we left Knoxville. But in every photo from that day, only 4 of us appear. Always the same 4. No gaps, no blurs, just absence. The name I can't remember. The voice I can't quite place. But every once in a while, I get a message on my phone from an unknown number. No words, just a location pin. Every time. It points to that blank stretch of gray road off Highway 19. And the message title always reads, "We remember you, Nate." We found it by accident, which is how most bad stories start. Old fire road. 37 wasn't marked on the GPS. It was just a split in the trees, tire worn and barely wide enough for the van. We were ghost hunters, technically, amateur. Sure, but serious about it. My name's Lena Holloway, 28 lead on the team we called Glass Veil. We'd heard rumors about the trail from a guy in Jackson who swore his cousin vanished up there. A haunting, he said, mirror-related. We figured it was just another backwoods story, the kind that turned tree shadows into specters. But we had cameras, gear, and 4 days to kill. So we drove in. It was early evening when we found the mirror, just standing there in the middle of a small clearing, framed by moss and cypress, antique, 7 feet tall, with ornate brass feet and a spiderweb crack in the top corner. There were no footprints around it, no debris, just the mirror, like the woods had grown up around it. We circled it twice before anyone dared get close. Milo, our tech guy, joked that maybe it was cursed and held up a GoPro. But when we looked into the glass, we didn't see ourselves. Not exactly. Instead, it showed a cabin, low-lit, timber walls, fire crackling, and us reflected. But inside that room, not the woods, I saw my own face, my own jacket. But my hands were different. Pale, still, like I hadn't moved in hours. Milo stepped closer and said, "It's looping us." Then he touched the glass. The surface rippled like water. He didn't fall. He didn't scream. He just vanished. No sound. One blink, and he was gone. But in the mirror, He was still there, sitting by the fire, staring out, motionless. We panicked. Sarah screamed. Dan tried to smash the glass with a rock, but it didn't crack further, didn't even shudder. I grabbed the thermal cam and pointed it at the mirror. It showed heat inside, shapes moving. Us. We think, but slower. Like we were being copied in real time and stored. We argued for hours, tried to rationalize it. But no one wanted to admit the worst part, Milo's reflection. It kept changing positions. Sometimes it looked right at us. Sometimes it wasn't in the cabin at all, just dark where he'd been. Eventually, we left. Took nothing, touched nothing else. The trail behind us felt longer, wrong. Sarah said the trees looked stretched, like we were walking through a tunnel that wasn't made for people. When we reached the van, the battery was dead. All 4 tires flat. No signal. We hiked out overnight. Made it to a ranger station at dawn. Told them we got lost. Didn't mention the mirror. Didn't say what happened to Milo. But even now, every photo we took that night, he's in them. Reflected somewhere. Not beside us, but inside the glass. Always watching. It's been 6 months, and we still haven't told Milo's parents what really happened. The official story was an accident. He slipped into a ravine, swept away in a current we couldn't trace. That's what the Rangers wrote down. But I haven't slept through the night since. Not because of guilt, because I still see him, not in dreams, but in screens, reflections, the dark of the microwave door, the passenger mirror of my car. Once, in a cafe window, I saw him sitting at a booth that wasn't there, mouthing something I couldn't hear. I started pulling apart our footage, frame by frame, every camera we had running that night. And he's there too many times, in angles the cameras weren't pointed at, in reflections that shouldn't have shown the mirror at all. In one shot, he's looking directly into the lens with eyes that don't move. Don't blink. Just watch. When I tried to delete the files, the drive froze. Then every video was replaced by a single clip. No sound. Just the mirror, flickering, and Milo inside it. Except now, the cabin's darker, the fire is out, and someone else is in the room behind him, tall, unmoving, face just beyond the light. Sarah doesn't talk to us anymore. She quit her job, moved back to Ohio. Dan drinks now. He used to laugh things off, but not anymore. He told me last week he found a mirror hanging in his garage that he swears wasn't there before. It's small, round, old. He smashed it. Said it bled. I don't know if he was drunk or serious, but I believed him because I found a shard of mirror in my mail last month. No envelope, no return address, just glass, cold and clean, wrapped in a sheet of paper that read, "One of you stays." I don't go near mirrors anymore. I've covered them, avoided shops with glass displays, but they still find me. I've seen my reflection turn to face me before I move. I've caught myself blinking out of sync. And last night, I dreamed I was back in that clearing. Except I wasn't outside the mirror. I was in the cabin, watching the woods, watching someone else step closer. Hand outstretched. Someone with my face, but not me. The worst part, I didn't feel trapped. I felt home. I drive this route every week. Same time, same load coalfield freight from Logan to Charleston and back. I know every turn, every overpass, every diner still serving pie after midnight. My name's Rick Dalton. Been a long hauler since I was 20, now pushing 52. Never had reason to doubt what I saw out there. Until about 3 months ago. It started with a shape on the overpass in Coalfield County. A little girl, always the same white dress, dark hair, swinging her legs like she didn't have a care in the world. At first I thought she was real. Maybe a runaway. Maybe worse. She showed up every Tuesday night, right after mile marker 117. No movement, no waving, just those small legs swinging slow over the edge. I radioed it in once. Figured maybe a local cop ought to check it out. But when I looped back around, she was gone. Didn't think much of it then. Kids do strange things. But she never aged, never blinked. And when I finally installed a dash cam to catch her on video, the footage showed nothing but an empty bridge. Over and over again. My eyes said she was there. The camera disagreed. Things escalated on the 4th sighting. I just passed under the overpass when the CB crackled. Static first, then a faint voice soft, like it was whispering from underwater. You finally saw me. I pulled over so hard I nearly jackknifed the whole load. Got out, looked up. No one there. Just the moon catching the railings. My hands were shaking bad enough I couldn't light a smoke. That night, when I got home, I found something on the windshield. Long, black strands of hair, stuck to the glass like seaweed, not blown on placed. I scrubbed the truck the next morning, told myself it was stress, fatigue, even skipped the Tuesday route for a couple weeks. Let someone else take it. But she came back anyway. Not on the bridge. In my dreams. Standing on the side of the highway, head tilted, a dress dirt-stained, eyes all pupil, no whites. Just those black circles and a smile that didn't move. And every time I tried to wake up, she stepped closer. Never ran. Just approached. I'd wake gasping, heart thundering like I'd driven 100 miles in my sleep. So I went back, took the route again, tried to see her, maybe catch something new. This time, as I passed under, she was already looking down, not at the road, at me. And I swear to God, her head turned with the truck, followed it like a weather vane. CB silent, no static, just that stare. And in the rear view, for a split second, I saw her standing in the middle of the road behind me. Not a blur, not a trick of light. Just there, full size now, hair sweeping the yellow lines. After that night, she didn't just stay on the route. She followed me home. Not in the literal way, no headlights in the mirror, no figure on the porch. But things started changing around me. My dog, Jasper, wouldn't go near the truck anymore. He'd bark at the passenger side door like something was sitting there. I started hearing that same faint voice on the radio at home. Tucked between static and country stations, you finally saw me. Always the same pitch, always the same timing. I'd unplugged the radio. Didn't matter. The voice came through the shower head once, through the sound of the microwave hum. Then came the photos. A week after my last drive through Coalfield, I got an envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single picture me, pumping gas at that rundown stop in Oak Hollow, taken at night. Candid, from a low angle, like the lens had been placed on the ground. I stared at it for an hour, trying to remember if I'd noticed anyone there. I hadn't. The station was empty when I pulled in. But what rattled me wasn't the shot, it was the reflection. In the truck's rear window, barely visible, was the girl. Face turned to the camera, grinning. I've considered quitting the route, selling the truck, even, But every time I try, something stops me. I get migraines, nosebleeds. My hands twitch on the steering wheel like they've been commanded. She wants me on that road. Wants me under that overpass again. The last time I passed it, I didn't see her. But my rear view tilted itself, slowly, without me touching it, angled up toward the bridge. I stared into it the whole way down the straightaway, didn't blink once, and just before the road curved again, I saw a shape drop quick and silent onto the shoulder behind me. Some nights now, I hear footsteps on the gravel outside. Slow, small. I check the yard, nothing there, but the smell wet concrete. Rain on metal always lingers. And once, when I passed by my own bathroom mirror at 3 a.m., I swear I saw a second set of feet behind mine. Bare, child-sized, just standing there, watching. I was halfway home when I noticed the truck behind me. Old Ford, navy blue, rust along the bumper. I was coming down Route 219 through West Virginia, just outside of Marlinton. Quiet stretch, one lane each way, barely lit, trees tight on both sides like they were trying to fold the road shut. My name's Haley McKean. 24, just finished a shift at the diner and was too tired to care about anything except my pillow. At first, I didn't think much of the truck, just someone tailgating a little close. But then it stayed, mile after mile, no matter how fast or slow I went. It matched me exactly. I took a left at the Shell station, just to see if he'd follow. He did. Then I turned into the lot of a closed-up laundromat. So did he. I parked under one of the busted lights, got out, trying to act like I needed something from the back seat. The guy got out too. Slowly, didn't say anything, just stared. That's when I noticed his eyes. Pure white, no iris, no pupil, just glossy orbs like peeled grapes. He didn't blink, didn't flinch, just looked straight through me like I wasn't real. Then he turned around and got back in his truck, still staring until the doors shut. I waited until he pulled out, but he didn't. Just sat there, engine running, headlights off, windows dark. I got back in the car, locked the doors, and sat with my hands shaking on the wheel. Finally, I peeled out, watching the mirror the whole time. He never followed, but I couldn't shake the feeling he'd already taken something. I didn't know what, just that a part of me wasn't mine anymore. That night, I checked every window in the apartment twice, slept with the TV on, still couldn't relax. Every dream I had, he was standing behind me, always behind, never moving. A week later, I got a letter, no return address. Inside was a photo me, at that exact gas station, bent over the pump. The timestamp said 1:04 a.m., the same time I'd been there. Only I don't remember anyone holding a camera. I flipped the photo over. Just one line. Written in something that looked like ink but smeared like oil. I never blinked. I don't go out late anymore, and I don't look in the rear view longer than I have to. Because some part of me believes he's still there, right at the edge of the frame, waiting for me to forget. I started seeing him elsewhere. Not in person, but in reflections. Shop windows, rear view mirrors, the chrome on parked cars. Always the same face, always those white eyes. Once, I saw him in the freezer door at the grocery store, standing behind my reflection like he belonged there. Another time, it was the back panel of my toaster, warped and shiny. I blinked, and he was gone. But each time it happened, something in my body reacted before my brain did heart racing, fingers going numb, like I'd been reminded of a danger I was trying too hard to forget. I tried to tell a friend about it, but the words came out wrong. I said he followed me and he doesn't blink, and her face closed off fast. She told me I needed rest. Maybe therapy. I agreed, even made the appointment. But when I showed up at the office, the receptionist told me no one by that therapist's name worked there. She even checked the system twice. I showed her the business card. The logo was smudged like ink in water, and the number on it led to a disconnected line. That night, I found another letter under my door. A photo again. This time, my bedroom window, taken from outside, lights off, me sleeping. I've stopped sleeping much since then. I leave all the lights on. I move the mirror in my room into the closet. But sometimes, the closet door swings open at night. Nothing ever falls out, just opens, like something inside wants to look. Once, I heard tapping on the glass from the inside. 3 slow knocks, spaced just enough to make me wonder if I'd imagined them. But I hadn't, because the next morning, I found another picture. A close-up this time. Just my eye, mid-blink, captioned in tiny handwriting, almost missed it. I'm scared to be alone now. But I can't be around people either. Not when I know he's still watching. Sometimes I wonder if he ever really left the truck, or if I'm just seeing pieces of whatever was riding behind my car that night. All I know is, wherever I go, I catch glimpses, a shoulder, a jawline, a flash of white in someone else's pupils. I don't think he wants to hurt me. I think he wants me to see him, over and over, until I forget what the world looked like before I did. I picked up the rental from the Asheville airport around noon, black sedan, low mileage, nothing fancy. I was heading east through the mountains on Route 64, chasing foliage for a photography assignment. I do freelance work for small travel mags, mostly scenic routes and seasonal landscapes. My name's Brian Keller. 35, and I'd driven that stretch before. Always alone, always in silence. About 2 hours in, somewhere past a stone overlook and an abandoned ranger hut, I started hearing it. A soft, irregular scratching. Not outside, from the trunk. At first, I thought maybe a branch had gotten wedged up under the undercarriage. But the sound wasn't right for that. It had rhythm. Hesitation, like something with fingers. I pulled over at a gravel turnout and checked the rear. Tires fine, nothing hanging from the chassis, no loose metal. Then I opened the trunk. Empty. Just the spare, jack, and one emergency kit with the seal still intact. I slammed it shut, maybe a little harder than I meant to, and told myself it was mountain paranoia. Wind and echoes playing tricks. I got back on the road. 20 minutes later, the smell hit, rotten and sweet, like roadkill under tarp. I cranked the windows, checked the vents, nothing. But the smell kept shifting. Sharpest whenever I glanced at the rearview mirror. And that's when I noticed the glass. It was fogging. Not from outside, from inside. A soft sheen of breath or vapor curling up the interior surface, like someone was breathing just below the lip of the back seat. I pulled over again, heart pounding now, and checked the trunk a second time. Still empty, still clean. But when I looked closer, there were scuff marks, like tiny handprints smeared in the felt lining. I wanted to return the car right then, Just turn around, hand the keys over, and walk. But I had a job to finish, and I kept telling myself it would pass, that it was just stress, or maybe some weird chemical the rental place had used on the upholstery. But the scratching came back, softer this time, more deliberate. And now I could feel it vibration through the seat, like something shifting its weight just inches from the gas tank. The worst part was how quiet everything else had gotten. No wind, no engine noise. Even the radio wouldn't pick up static. Just silence. And that sound behind me, steady as breath. I made it to the cabin I'd rented just before dusk. Nerves frayed and hands trembling from gripping the wheel too long. It was tucked into the edge of a wooded slope, isolated but with good sight lines, just how I liked it for landscape work. I unloaded the gear fast, kept glancing over my shoulder like I expected someone to be standing there. When I opened the trunk again, the smell had faded, but not completely. And there, on the inside of the lid, was a single, muddy handprint, small, child-sized, pressed from inside the glass. I didn't touch it, just closed the trunk and left the gear in the car for the night. Inside the cabin, I kept the lights on. No fire, no music. Just silence thick enough to stir up old memories of basements and dark closets. I checked the doors 3 times. I didn't sleep. Around 2 a.m., I heard something slide across the porch slow, dragging, like bare feet on old wood. I held my breath. Then a single knock. Not on the door, but the back window. I didn't look. I couldn't look. The knock didn't come again. Just the sound of something exhaling against the glass, then fading. The next morning, I forced myself to get the camera and head to the ridge. The trees were gold and blood red, beautiful in a way that felt undeserved, self-evident. But I couldn't focus. Every click of the shutter felt wrong. Every frame showed more shadow than I remembered, more blur in the corners. When I reviewed the photos later, I found a figure behind the trees, low to the ground, pale, with one hand braced against the bark. In 4 different shots, it appeared closer. I hadn't seen anything while I was shooting. That afternoon, I packed up and left early. Couldn't stomach one more night. At the rental office, I asked about the sedan who had it last, whether it had been detailed. The guy behind the counter looked confused. "You're the first one in that car," he said. "It just came out of maintenance. Sat on the lot for a month before you took it." I almost asked him to come look, to show him the handprint. But when I popped the trunk one last time, it was gone. Clean, lining smooth, like nothing had ever touched it. Still, I smelled it just for a second. That sick, sweet rot. Faint, like something waving goodbye. I moved up here to be forgotten. 71 years old. 2 bad knees. And nothing left of the old world but a pension and a packed suitcase. My name's Franklin Reed. 42 years on the rails. Most of them spent guiding freight through places people only knew by the echoes they left behind. Avery Hollow wasn't on any map anymore. Not really. Just a pit of trees and collapsed cabins tucked along a broken spur of the southern line. When I bought the old place, the realtor called it peaceful. She didn't mention the tracks. They run along the bottom of the hollow, warped now, swallowed in moss and brambles. I thought they'd be a comfort, like bones of something I used to understand. The first night I slept in the house, I dreamed of the old depot, of smoke and hiss, the kind you don't forget even after your ears go soft. But then, just before dawn, I heard it for real. A whistle, faint, far off, but clear. 3 short blasts, 1 long. My bones knew it before my brain did. The 317 pattern, signal for a train that's not supposed to exist. I told myself it was wind. A coyote, maybe. But it came again the next night. Same time, same tone, like a clock running beneath the trees. I tried to sleep through it, but it curled around the house like fog settled in my teeth, my chest. On the 4th night, I got up, slipped on my boots, grabbed the old lantern I kept more for nostalgia than use, and walked the edge of the hollow. No train, no lights, just the call of it, long and slow, echoing like it was circling something it didn't want to leave. I found the line around 4 a.m., overgrown and quiet. No footprints but mine. And still, the scent of rust, of hot oil, long cooled. I walked a 1/4 mile west, toward a break in the tree line. And that's when I saw it something massive, hunched beneath a veil of ivy and soot. A train car. No, an engine. Split down the side like it had been cracked open by the mountain itself. I didn't touch it, just stared. Because stenciled in peeling white paint along the cab was a number I knew by heart. 1017. The last train I ever rode before retirement. The one that was scrapped in 83. I circled the engine, careful not to step too loud. Though I couldn't tell you why. The thing looked ancient, half swallowed by the hill. But the metal was warm. Not sun warm. Residual warm, like it had just stopped moving. One of the windows was broken open, and I could smell something from inside, coal dust and wet wool. The scent of every railcar locker I ever opened in the dead of winter. I climbed up the side ladder, knees shaking, and looked into the cab. Empty, but not abandoned. A lantern sat in the corner, wick burned black. A logbook, pages damp but intact, with yesterday's date scrawled in pencil, under conductor, one name, Frank Reed. I backed out quick, hand clutching the rail like a lifeline. I wanted to run but couldn't not, with the creak of footsteps following mine on the gravel. I didn't turn around, just walked straight back to the house. The way a man walks from a grave he doesn't remember digging. I didn't sleep that night, or the next. But the whistle kept coming. Always 317. Sometimes I swore I heard the low groan of wheels on track, like the engine was shifting in its cradle. The house started changing too. Floorboards cold, silverware vibrating in drawers just before the sound came. A week passed. Then I found the suitcase. Not outside, not in the woods, in the attic. Dustless, locked. My initials were on the brass plate, same as the one I lost 30 years back in a derailment near Boone. Inside was a conductor's cap, folded clothes I hadn't worn in decades. And at the very bottom, a photograph. Me, lying in bed, in this house. Same quilt. Same nightstand taken from the foot of the bed, where the door stands open just wide enough for a shadow to lean in. I dropped it, left it there on the attic floor, face down. I don't know how long I've been here anymore. The clock stopped last Thursday. The whistle comes earlier now, 3:16, then 3:14. Yesterday, it sounded at 2:59. I think it's getting closer. I think the engine is finding its way back. And part of me wants it to. Every night I lie in bed and count the blasts. 3 short, 1 long. But sometimes, now, there's a 5th, a new note, low and final, like a door being shut from the other side. I think it's calling for me. And I think next time, I'll answer.